everybody, it's the Crypto Oyster here. I wanted to bring you the top news in the crypto community. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more news curated right to you. First up, El Salvador that we've been covering for the past week. The president announced on Twitter that he would be sending legislature to their Congress to be voted. As I noted in my previous video, his party holds a supermajority, and it would be a bill that would probably end up passing. And as we know now, they are actually the first country now to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender after passing the law. So the lawmakers in the Central American countries' Congress voted by a supermajority in the favor of Bitcoin law, receiving 62 out of the 84 of the legislature's votes. The price of Bitcoin was up 5% after the vote. And here's a tweet from the president. The Bitcoin law has been approved by a supermajority in the Salvadoran Congress. 62 out of the 84 votes. History in the making, y'all. We are living through history. This is big news for Bitcoin and for the overall crypto community. Now, what exactly is the purpose of this law being passed? So the purpose of this law is to regulate Bitcoin as unrestricted legal tender with liberating power, unlimited in any transaction to any title that public or private nature or legal persons require carrying out, the law reads. Prices can now be shown in Bitcoin. Tax contributions can be paid with the digital currency, and exchanges in Bitcoin will now be subject to capital gains tax. So obviously we know that Bitcoin is pretty volatile, and critics have suggested that it's not suitable to be an effective currency, and it's still unclear how El Salvador will ultimately roll out Bitcoin as legal tender. I agree with that. It's still going to be a challenge, but I think that's kind of the beauty in some things. El Salvador had the guts to start this process and kind of figure things out as they went. They didn't wait for everything to be necessarily aligned or have the answers to everything, which is why I think they're going to lead this. Which I think why they are leading this is they're going to figure it out on the journey, which is very entrepreneurial of them, and I'm excited to see how it's rolled out and implemented. So this is really important here. I noted this in my last video, and I'm glad that the law stated this. So they're going to promote the necessary training and mechanisms so that the population can access Bitcoin transactions. This is what I was saying in my previous video. How they will do this is, I think, the most important thing, because it's such a new system that not everybody understands. You have a wallet address, the public key, the private key. This is going to be super important, especially considering that approximately 70% of El Salvador does not have access to traditional financial services, according to the Bitcoin law, which is one of the major reasons that they adopted this law. So it's supposed to increase financial inclusion. But again, if 70% of this population doesn't have access to these traditional financial services, this may be a completely new realm for them as they're now getting access. So it's going to be up to the government to really roll this out and give their citizens the education needed for them to succeed with utilizing Bitcoin. Now, this is an announcement that shows me that he, as in the president of El Salvador, is making the right moves to implement this. So he announced last week that El Salvador struck a partnership with digital wallet company Strike to build the country's modern financial infrastructure using Bitcoin's technology. So they're already partnered with somebody. They're going to build this infrastructure needed to support the entire country's need for digital wallets to store their Bitcoin, to transact on the Bitcoin network. As for me, I'm really optimistic for the country of El Salvador. I think it's going to be a bumpy road, but nonetheless headed in the right trajectory. So kudos to the country of El Salvador for making this big stride where others may continue to lack. A quick update on my previous video where I announced that MicroStrategy, founded by Michael Saylor, was issuing bonds or IOUs to investors to obtain more money to invest in Bitcoin. So he's making a huge bet that Bitcoin will continue to rise, and I believe that. Now, that bond sale, the junk bond deal, junk bond meaning that the IOU has a higher yield because it's more risky, they saw $1.6 billion in interest. And as I mentioned in the previous video, they were trying to raise $400 million, and then they upped that amount and said they would raise 500 million. The interest that came in was 3 times as much of 1.6 billion in interest for the junk bond deal. That's incredible. There's incredible demand from investors to gain exposure, and I think this is overall continued positive news of $1.6 billion flowing into the crypto community, specifically Bitcoin. Now let's look at this. Ethereum, the number 2 crypto asset. The deposits reached an all-time high in May for the ETH 2.0 network. And the first Ethereum node has launched into outer space, where it now resides aboard the ISS, the International Space Station. Ethereum literally almost to the moon. It's hilarious. So it was actually launched on Thursday, June 3rd, as part of an initiative to bring enhanced security to blockchain transactions. The Ethereum 2.0 network has received record-breaking numbers of new deposits in May, indicating increased interest for and investment in Ethereum's plans to reduce blockchain energy consumption through the transition to proof-of-stake consensus protocol. As of right now, Ethereum is on the proof-of-work consensus protocol. So here we have this chart. We're seeing the last all-time high for deposits was in December of 2020 at 26,057. But we now reached a new all-time high last month in May, 26,681. So deposits have continued to grow, as I mentioned, and the total ETH staked in the network has also grown. But in order to be an ETH 2.0 validator, you must stake a minimum of 32 Ethereum worth roughly $81,000 at the time this article was written. In dollar terms, the total ETH staked on Ethereum 2.0 has risen from 12 billion at the beginning of May to over 13 billion as of Tuesday, June 7th. That's a billion increase in money being staked on Ethereum. These deposits are representing almost 5% of the circulating supply of Ether. An entire 5% is locked up. But it also points that the vast majority of Ethereum is used for other purposes outside of staking. So market speculation, holding, lending, trading, and so here's another thing too. So since the major incident in February, which ousted 75 validators from the 2.0 network, there have been 8 new incidents of slashing. So slashings occur when a validator is heavily penalized and forcibly removed from the network for malicious behavior that goes against the rules of the protocol. The malicious behavior of the past 8 slashing incidents have all been attestation violations. Attestation meaning showing proof or validating something, which what the nodes do. So these validators intentionally, but more likely accidentally signed off on 2 attestations for the same block instead of 1. So here it explains why this can happen. If a user is trying to maximize reward by running as the same ETH 2.0 validator using 2 different setups, when one setup goes down, the plan is to automatically boot up the other to minimize operational downtime. But when this is done, it can lead to a validator being slashed. So that's all the news that I have for you all today. I really appreciate you all tuning in. Please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll make sure to continue to bring to you all the top news in the crypto community.